Hey Ding Dongs, this is Jamie.
This is Richard.
And this is Explain It to Jamie, the podcast in which I get the complicated happenings of the world explained to me by my good friend Richard Lamb.
Friendship.
Knowledge.
Explaining. Jokes about buttholes.
Yeah, they're coming. Yeah, tune
Strap in.
Yeah, stay tuned. What do we do? Just get into it, I guess.
I suppose so. I think
we've been, yeah.
Your buttholes will be especially relevant for this episode.
Yeah, get your buttholes ready. We're gonna cram some info into them. For the topic this week, I am choosing Obamacare.
Right.
American health care.
Okay. So,
Whoa.
Jamie, why is it that you want to know more about Obamacare?
Well, we've touched on it a little bit in some of our past podcasts, namely like the idea that Obama seemed to work so hard to implement this new fangled healthcare system,
right? And
Donald Trump is very quickly dismantling it without seeming to have anything to replace it. We touched on that a little bit in our first 10 Days of Trump episode, which if you haven't seen, go check that out.
Yeah, go listen.
And obviously because of that, it's popping up in the news. It's popping up on my Facebook feed more and more regularly. And the world seems to be, in America specifically, seems to be growing more and more in a state of like chaos and nervousness around it because it's actually happening.
It's actually happening.
That's
great. Well, as I believe Donald Trump said this week, I never knew healthcare was so simple. I'm so happy I understand everything about it now.
Yeah. He did say that, didn't he?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah. No, that's not true.
We tricked you guys.
Yeah, dum-dums.
You thought that Donald Trump said that. We had you going.
No, he said the opposite.
No, this is super complicated.
Nobody knew that healthcare could be so complicated.
Folks.
I kind of did a Bernie Sanders
Folks, who knew?
Yeah.
Who knew that the healthcare was so complicated? Yeah. Nobody has ever delved into how... I'm also doing kind of Bernie Sanders now.
Yeah, we're on a clear flavor. We all knew.
Yeah.
We all knew.
That's right.
When he was elected president, the world sighed a resounding sigh of sadness.
Okay, and also the only person who did not know healthcare was incredibly complicated is someone who has never had to worry about it one day of their fucking lives.
Exactly.
They have not had to think about it for one fucking second. That's why he's like, this is what you peons have to do? Like, when I need healthcare, I just get the 9 prostitute doctors that I have waiting in my golden living room to come and poke suppositories up my butthole and replace my horrible limbs with limbs from nimble young orphans.
Yeah, wow. Yeah. Richard showing a little bit of his bourgeois upbringing there as he understands completely what the upper crust healthcare system is like.
I'm trying to change it from within, everybody. Okay, let's get into it. Healthcare, Obamacare, strap in.
Yeah, buttholes.
I'm totally going in on buttholes.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so Jamie, let's start out with our typical temperature taking here.
Yes.
What do you know about Obamacare?
I know
temperature take. This is like a medical. There's going to be a lot of medical analogies. I feel on this episode.
Oh, definitely.
Let's just keep that rolling.
Definitely. So keep your ears peeled for the puns that are coming through. Obamacare.
Yes.
Is when, if in the States you get sick.
Yes.
You call the doctor store.
Go on.
And Obama himself personally comes to your house and administers medicine.
That's right. That's true.
I thought so. Okay, what should we talk about next week?
Yeah, he fist bump. Everything you're saying is correct.
Yeah.
Donald Trump's really having trouble with these concepts, but we have faith he'll get through them soon.
That's right. Obama is sort of the Santa Claus of the American healthcare system. That he travels all over the country every night, not just one night. and administers medicine to all of the sick and dying people.
That's right. If you've been very good and you've said your prayers to Mecca and and done your part to instill Sharia law in America, then Obama creeps down your chimney and gives you an eye exam.
That's exactly right. That's what Jeff Sessions said, I think.
I believe so. I believe that is what Jeff Sessions said.
Yeah.
Okay, no. Okay, so I'm going to put the disclaimer here. I am not an expert in these things. I'm especially not an expert in this, but I am a person who does the Googles and knows a little bit about politics. This also, this touches on a lot of stuff, including health insurance, which I am not an expert on at all, and I'm probably going to get stuff wrong. If we get stuff wrong, we do clarification episodes from time to time where we make sure that we visit things that we might have gotten wrong. So if you hear something that we got wrong, by the way, please write us a thing, write us a comment, send us an email,
Engage.
Tweet at us.
This is a conversation we're having right now, not only with each other, but also with the people that are listening. And we would love it if you engaged back and helped us to shape what is just a blossoming podcast.
Right. So, let's get started.
Okay.
Obamacare was a measure introduced by Barack Obama called the Affordable Care Act. That's the real name of it.
So, Obamacare is named after Barack Obama.
That's correct. But Obama doesn't call it Obamacare. Obamacare was like a derogatory name invented by Republicans and Fox News and stuff to try to scare people away from this healthcare bill. Now, this healthcare bill had a very specific focus and a very specific goal, which was to improve the number of Americans that have no health insurance, to try to get health insurance for, it was, I think, there's like 20 million people, 25 million people. The estimates on these things, like all the numbers in Obamacare are highly contested because A, it's super political, right? If it helped a lot of people or not, and B, that it's pretty fresh. So people are able to really focus on the numbers that support their position and ignore the numbers that don't. I saw lots of squabbling about the numbers, but the fact is, before
tens of millions of people,
millions and millions of people had no health insurance. 300 million.
So it's 7% or something.
Yeah, that's right. A substantial chunk of people did not have health insurance in America,
right.
And so this was an attempt to get those people health insurance and open up access to health care for them.
Right. So problem solved. Everybody's got health care.
That's right.
Nobody has anything to worry about.
That's right.
So what's going on, Richard?
Well, okay. We have to back up more. We have to fill this in.
Sure.
So the Republicans right now, they want to repeal Obamacare, and this was a very popular measure because Obamacare is perceived by the Republican base as not being a good thing. The reason for that is because of what it is philosophically and politically. So let's just talk a bit more about what it is, because I feel like many people don't understand what it is, or they kind of know what it is, but let's just hammer these details down.
Yeah.
Before the Affordable Care Act was passed, the United States health insurance industry is famously ruthless and unregulated and kind of dehumanizing and horrible, right?
And Affordable Health Care Act is Obamacare.
That's right. They're the same thing.
Did we say that already?
We did say that already, I think.
Kaboom.
Let's double. We're going to say that 10 times. The Affordable Care Act is Obamacare. So before the Affordable Care Act, part of the reason the number of people without health insurance was so high is that health insurance companies had a lot of power over if they insured somebody or not. And so, the famous term is pre-existing conditions, right? You could be denied health insurance coverage by a company if you were sick already. If you had been treated for an illness, if you had been diagnosed with an illness, they could be like, no, we're not going to cover you because you have to get medical treatment. So then they're not going to give you insurance because they know they'll have to pay out, right?
Right.
It also, a lot of insurance plans. Oh, and okay, let me just pivot here for a second. Most people in the U.S. get health insurance through their workplace. So if you work for a company, that company usually negotiates either just for its employees or with other workplaces as well, these big group health insurance deals, which usually in the States are not, for the States are good deals, right? And, the different benefits packages that companies offer are part of how they compete with each other to attract good hires and things like that. What makes one company more attractive than others if their insurance package is better. So most people are insured through their work.
Right.
This Obamacare mainly targeted individual people who were not insured through their workplace, who did not have insurance. Because for individual people who were not getting health insurance through their company, it was often way more expensive. If you were already sick, it was super, super difficult to get. Right. And there are all kinds of, obstacles, and especially just a huge financial cost to getting healthcare in the United States. Healthcare is really expensive in the United States because of the way their insurance works and because of the way that their medical system is set up.
Right.
So Obamacare what it did was regulate what insurance companies could do to allow or deny people into insurance, right? So it basically said there's a period of time every year called open enrollment. And during open enrollment, which is like a month long, insurance companies are not allowed to deny people for pre-existing conditions. They have to offer an insurance package that covers everything, that covers like a basic list of services, like essential services. So in the past, insurance companies could just offer something that didn't include all kinds of things. Like most of them, or almost half of them, didn't include mental health or any drug treatment or anything like that.
Right. If you got a cough, come to us. But
that's right. If you break a bone, sure. But it's like if you need counseling or if you need, ambulance rides or nursing services, there's all these other things that are all these other costs associated with healthcare, and insurance companies could just choose to offer them or not. But now under the Affordable Care Act, during open enrollment, they have to offer plans that cover all of the essential services, which includes mental health. And they also can't deny people for pre-existing conditions, right? So those two things alone really helped bring people in, because mental health diagnoses were one of the main things that led to people not getting insurance in the first place. Insurance companies would deny people with mental health diagnoses all the time, right? That was a pre-existing condition. So already those people suddenly had access to insurance that they didn't used to have.
Okay.
Right. Also, it put in place a bunch of subsidies and tax credits for people who were lower income to help them pay for insurance as well. So these are the two things it did. It expanded who could get insurance, and then it helped the people who were most vulnerable getting that insurance for the first time pay for it. Okay. It made it cheaper. Then the other big thing it did was expand Medicaid. I'm sure you've heard of this term.
I've heard the term Medicaid.
So Medicaid is the closest thing America has to Canada's universal healthcare system. It's like it's the state healthcare system, the public health insurance system, like what we have in Canada. But in the past, before the Affordable Care Act, Medicaid applied to elderly people, low-income pregnant women, and low-income children. Okay. Right. So if you were in any of those groups.
So say those three again.
So if you're old people, especially low-income old people,
pregnant women,
low-income pregnant women, low-income children,
pregnant children,
low-income pregnant children.
Right. They would definitely qualify.
Low-income dogs.
Yeah. What if you were?
Yeah. The kid from Stranger Things.
Definitely.
Yeah. That kid definitely gets Medicaid. He's rad.
Yeah.
He's rad as fuck.
What if you were an elderly pregnant child?
You got super Medicaid.
Yeah.
Which is like Medicaid, except the power-ups are last twice as long. The prescriptions last twice as long. So the Affordable Care Act required states to expand Medicaid to all adults who were below the poverty, or who were within 138% of the poverty line. So from everyone who's slightly above the poverty line, that's where the threshold is, and any adult now can qualify for state health insurance, public health insurance. So that also got a lot of people insurance for the first time.
Great,
right?
Problem solved.
Yes. Yeah. Well, here's the thing. It was considered it was smeared and lied about, right? Like the famous thing was that all kinds of lies were told about Obamacare when it first dropped. And it's by no means a perfect system because healthcare in the US is really messed up and icky, right? Yeah. It's like a weird situation in the US with the healthcare. And I don't know, I have trouble not looking at it as like a philosophical debate almost about healthcare and capitalism. You know what I mean?
Well, you know what? I will say, every time I go to the States and I see a commercial for a hospital, or like something like that, I get
Did you want to puke?
Yeah, I feel gross, and I'm like, it's a reminder. Oh, you're not in Kansas anymore. Except literally, you're in Kansas, and
you are in Kansas. You have to pay there's a tornado, and now you have to pay $100,000
if you want to keep your legs.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it is, and I think it's one of those. It's not a grass is always greener. It's like the grass on my side of the fence is clearly green, and I've lived with green grass, and now I go to the other side, and they're eating like yellow shitty grass with needles in it,
and they're fucking squabbling over it.
Yeah,
and they're like, no, you don't get to have any of my yellow shitty grass. They're a poorer person than me.
Yeah. And I certainly don't want any green grass.
Yeah. No. Why would I want that? That's what communists eat.
Yeah, communist dicks.
Yeah.
I think so. Okay, right. So yeah, I definitely agree. When I go to the States, I get a gross feeling every time I sort of notice that. Well, okay, here's a fun just little anecdote that me and Richard can share.
Oh yeah,
we were in Chicago doing the Improv Festival a number of years ago, and we were at a party, and this girl.
We were at a party. There were people smoking recreational marijuana. Jamie and I were just taking notes about it so we could report them to the proper authorities.
Yeah,
later.
we were just looking.
We were looking, observing as detached, impartial observers.
That's right. We were the responsible ones of the party.
That's right. We were taking notes.
And this young lady had too much weed. And she
I believe they call it weed madness. Correct me if I'm wrong. I have to flip through my notes.
The cannabis craze.
Let me flip through the notes that I made here from that time.
Yes, she definitely reported having weed madness.
Her pupils widened and turned green and began to glow with an unearthly, fell light. Indeed, I heard whispering in my ear Lucifer's call, telling me to descend into sin and join them in their orgiastic revelry. But I, a good Canadian boy, merely picked up the phone and called my local Boy Scout commander, asking him for advice on how to get me out of this situation. Sorry, those were the notes I wrote. Anyway, you were saying, Jamie.
So she started to have a bit of a freak out. She was urging the owner of the house. She was from Germany. She's like urging the owner of the house. I need you to call. I need to go to the hospital. I need you to call an ambulance.
She was like, I'm dying.
We're all sort of trying to comfort her, saying, no, you're not
dying.
You're okay. You've just had too much. You're going to be fine.
Yeah.
And sort of everything stopped for me and Richard when the owner of the house then said, I'm not going to call you an ambulance because nobody here can afford an ambulance.
And we were like,
oh my God.
Holy shit.
Yeah, we are not at home right now.
And that's what's interesting. Like, we have listeners in America and in other countries as well. And maybe if you're American, you don't realize this, but like, we don't think about that.
Yeah.
I would pick up 911 and call an ambulance in 1 second, and the cost of it would not even cross my mind.
Yeah.
And the fact that in America it does cross your mind is one of those things where, like, every Canadian I think has a American healthcare anecdote. Like, people go to America and just kind of collect them like safari stories.
Yeah.
My parents have one. They lived in San Diego for a while, and in the 80s. And they went to the 1 hour photo place once to get photos developed. This was before we had, future boxes that did all this for us.
Yeah.
And the guy who was working the 1 hour photo place was like, I'm sorry, it's going to take longer than an hour because I just broke my arm and I have to set it myself in the back alone.
Yeah.
Because he couldn't go to the hospital because he had no insurance.
Wow.
And it's like, and this is the thing about American healthcare that's hard to be, as a Canadian, it's hard to be impartial about. Like, when you're talking about something where, here's the thing I found studying healthcare and looking at it and researching it for this episode, like, there's tons of technical, bureaucratic numbers, information about it, but there's not a lot of like, let's step back a little bit and really think about what's happening here, because like, it's the intersection of like politics and economics and government with like the worst and most vulnerable experiences that people go through. And like, the idea that we must provide healthcare to people it's a compassionate idea.
Yeah.
Like, anyone who has had experiences at the hospital knows that you are in a compromised and vulnerable state when you go there. And the idea that then you would like I
You
can't
have to
see
pull your credit card out and like.
And can you see anything but disgusting disaster coming from that? When it's like, if you're the person charging people,
Yeah.
like, because the way that a totally unregulated free market capitalism in theory works is like there's supply and demand. You have a medical service, and the market. The price of your service is whatever the market will bear, whatever people are willing to pay for it. If they'll pay what they think its value is.
Yeah.
At the moment you've got someone, in an unregulated market, and you're like, actually, it's 3 times as much to set your broken leg. Like, are people going to tell you to fuck off and walk away? Like,
Yeah.
there's such an aspect of vulnerability to getting your health care taken, to getting your health looked at, and you're to getting treated by someone.
Yeah.
That, like, I don't know. It's so icky.
I also want to do a quick update on the young German girl at the party.
Yes.
She was obviously, and this is going to come as no surprise to any of our conservative viewers, but the weed made her so gay that she died.
It was I'll
very
never
sad.
forget it.
It was very
I'll
sad.
never forget it.
Right.
Her soul ripped out of her body, kissed another woman's soul.
Yeah.
Turned Ellen on the TV, and then exploded
Evaporated.
into hellfire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was something to see, let me tell you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have another very quick story, just because we're
why not?
on it. A buddy of mine came up from the States to do a show, and while he's a very acrobatic, athletic guy. Mm-hmm. And while he was just doing something pedestrian on the street, he just turned on one of his legs. He broke a bone in his leg, just randomly. Never would have happened. Of course, it happened when he's out of country.
Yeah.
He goes to the hospital, and the hospital says, where are you from? He says, I'm from Minnesota. They say, could you have health care? He says, no. And it costs $10,000 to fix.
Holy crap.
And, the people, this was at the Fringe Festival in Edmonton, and we all, through a show, a fundraiser show, and all the street performers threw together a couple shows, mm-hmm. and donated one of their shows, and we ended up actually fundraising all the money required, so he didn't have to pay anything. The thing is, and this is what maybe you can clarify this for me. Mm-hmm. The thing is, the doctor then told him later, he says, because you told me you're from Minnesota, you understand I don't want to do this. Yeah. Because it's not very often I have to, but I have to charge you this money.
Right.
I'm like legally obligated to.
Right.
If you had told me you were homeless, I would have had to set your leg and send you on your way. No questions asked.
Right.
And so that's my question, is like, if you, maybe I've just unearthed an immense loophole that now, you can, if you're in the States and you're listening to this and you break your leg, give it a shot.
You're homeless. Why not?
But like, if you're in the States and you break your leg and you go down to a hospital and say, I broke my leg, I'm homeless, I don't have health insurance, do they turn you away?
No, a hospital cannot deny you care. I don't think they will turn you away and let you die, but they will treat you and then ruthlessly attempt to get that money from you for years and years. Right? Like, they will get that money from you. They will garnish your wages. They will repossess your things. They will do stuff like that. Right.
Will they take your legs back?
Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah. I've seen the room where they keep the legs. Yeah. Let me tell you.
Why were you in that room?
Let's just say you maybe have never heard of a cabin made of legs now. But one day, every house in America
will be made out of repossessed human legs.
Repossessed human legs.
Wow.
That's right.
I'm glad we got there to the cabin made of legs.
Yeah.
I was a real fastball of run with this bullshit I gave to Richard
right.
just then.
That's right.
Yeah. Tell us a story, Rick.
But yeah, and the cost thing is brutal. I mean, okay, so here's the thing: is like, you and I pay. The average Canadian person pays like $5,000 or so a year in healthcare costs,
well,
which is
you might. I don't pay taxes.
Right. Yeah. No, but that's not even taxes.
Right.
Like, that's just stuff that they pay for that isn't covered by our health insurance, which is like certain stuff. Like, okay, so like if you and I were to get a plan right now under Obamacare in America, we would pay probably between $2,800 and like $4,500 a year American. So it'd be like $3,000 to $4,500 a year. That's the premium for the insurance. Do you know how much you pay in Canada?
No.
The premium that you and I pay on our insurance in Ontario. In Canada, in Canada we have what's called a single payer health insurance system. There's only 2 countries in the world that have it. Canada and Taiwan.
Hey.
Yeah.
Yeah, big ups to Taiwan.
Our health insurance system is a single payer health insurance system because the government insures all of us, the provincial government of the province that we live in, and they assume 100% of the cost of the services that we pay for, except and there's like a basic kit of services that's countrywide, and then certain provinces cover other stuff. Like, we don't get dental care in Ontario, right? We don't get eye care. So those are extra things.
I'm always confused about that. I feel like, you can get such rotten teeth that you die.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of an old school. I think because, maybe some of this stuff was hammered out when people's teeth were not all good.
Right.
Right.
Like, can you imagine fixing all these fuckers' teeth?
Yeah. We don't know what to do with these things. You want to go, maybe dentists were like homeopathy back when they did this. They were like, this guy claims he's a tooth doctor.
Yeah, it's like how barbers also used to be surgeons.
That's right, yeah.
Like jewelers used to be dentists also.
Yeah, and how painters used to be bikini waxers. And how cellists used to also be snipers.
In days of old, when painters were also bikini waxers.
Those were the days.
Yeah.
Ugh. Make Canada great again, guys.
Yeah, it's funny. It's interesting that Frida Kahlo never did her own eyebrow. Whoa!
Jamie!
Bringing it out.
Somebody subscribe to the Mensa newsletter. So you and I so in Ontario, you and I pay about $200 a year for our health insurance.
Whoa!
On our taxes.
That's too much.
Yeah.
Too high.
So in America, they would pay $3,000 to $4,500 a year. The most that you would pay in Ontario, people who are in the highest tax bracket, if you make more than $200,000 a year in Ontario, you pay $900 a year for your health care.
Wow.
So that's like the difference between a socialized system.
Right. So someone who makes $250,000 a year in Ontario pays less than half of what someone who makes $10,000 in the States.
No, if you make $10,000 in the States, you get Medicaid. Oh. But if you're like us and you're not in the poverty line, you're in kind of like the blue collar.
Above, yeah.
We're in like the $25,000 to $40,000 range of.
Yeah, speak for yourself. I'm hugging that poverty line pretty much every year.
Anyway, so somebody like us, they are paying like $2,800 to $4,500, and then their insurance does not cover 100% of the cost of what they do. They have it's called they do cost sharing. So once you get insurance, you have a limit. It's about for like the benchmark plan, like the standard silver plan. They're like bronze, silver, gold. That's how they grade them. Mm-hmm. The insurance company will pay for 70% of any treatment you get, and you still pay for 30%.
Right. That's silver you said?
That's the silver plan. Silver. Yeah. Up to a certain limit. That's your deductible. And once you go past your deductible, then they pay 100%. But the deductible on a plan like that, the one that I was just talking about that would cost like $3,000 is like $7,000. So you could still pay $10,000 a year in healthcare if you use it.
If you got some shit wrong with you.
Yeah.
Is the bronze plan, as we all know, is if you have something serious enough, they just tell you to put rocks in your pockets and walk into the ocean.
That's right. That's right. It's basically the bronze plan is like a broom closet where there's a person who's like, "Have you ever thought about not being alive?"
Yeah.
Let me tell you about Jesus Christ, our Lord.
It's run exclusively
Let me tell
by
you about the
church.
Afterlife and how it can benefit you to seek it immediately.
Yeah, you get free healthcare in the afterlife.
Yeah. That's right. That's right. If you're Canadian. Actually, your healthcare carries over from whatever you had in life.
Okay, so there's silver, there's bronze, there's gold.
Yeah.
Gold being the best.
It just means that they pay more, like the cost sharing. So then if you pay a higher premium, but then they will pay for more of the services.
More of the stuff you get.
Yeah.
All right.
So what I'm saying is you still are paying so much more money in healthcare than you are now. Like, can you imagine if you had to pay an extra $3,000 a year Like, because we pay $200 a year.
I couldn't.
You and I for our healthcare system. Like that's for our insurance. Like that's how much we pay to be insured fully by the government for everything. You know, and our system's not perfect. It has like a problem with access and a problem with wait times. Right, like it takes a long time compared to other places to see a doctor in Canada. But like again, it always like that's numbers. But here we are pulling back now again to philosophy. It's like, you and I live with the knowledge that if a drunk driver smashes us with a car, we will not be like financially ruined because somebody else made a horrible mistake.
Yeah.
I saw a woman get hit by a car last week.
Yeah.
And we called her an ambulance, and she got in the ambulance and was, treated for a broken ankle.
Well, I guess that's why maybe I'm speaking out of school, but I guess it seems like injury law is a lot more prevalent in the state. You see way more like
for sure.
Injured in an accident that wasn't your fault. Let's help, like tell us, and we'll get some money to pay
Definitely.
for that.
Well,
pay for those bills
because people are assuming so much of the cost themselves, and that's messed up.
Yeah.
Like medical costs are really high in some parts of the states because there's like capitalism involved, right? Like in Canada, the fees for medical services are like fixed with the government, right? Because the government's paying for almost all of them.
Right.
So like the doctors, the medical providers, and the government agree that like an MRI costs this much. Every time you get an MRI, we charge you this much. There are places in the U.S. where going for an MRI scan costs $5,000.
Right.
Just to get an MRI. And if you had to get an MRI and you were on the normal silver plan, you'd have to pay $1,500.
Yeah.
And that's with your insurance covering the rest of it.
Yeah. I know. Okay. How do I know? I know a doctor in the States who has a share in a machine.
Yeah.
So like there's him and other doctors went in, bought this $2 million whatever scanning machine.
That probably is an MRI.
And it costs $10,000 to turn it on.
Yeah.
And so like they all just bought this thing, and they're waiting to get their money back. And apparently they've already made their money back, and they bought it like 4 years ago.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, for real, man.
Yeah.
That's a weird way to run a system about fixing people.
Like you're immediately in, I think, a moral gray area, right? When you're thinking of using the mechanisms of capitalist price setting to profit from people who need healthcare, you're already like really close to some dark shit.
Yeah, and I guess this leads me to maybe this pivot into why the Republicans don't want it.
Right.
The main argument, and I kind of think it's a bullshit, but the main argument I hear most regularly for like why they don't want public health care is because of like they use the term wait times a lot.
Right.
Is that if it was public you'd always be waiting.
Right.
And also the argument is sort of the classic American argument of everything's better with capitalism. Like with private enterprise comes more innovation, more which I don't know, maybe true, maybe it's not, but I and I have noticed if I have if I go to the hospital and I have non-emergency wounds or injuries, you can wait a long time.
Yeah, of course. I mean, we all have stories of that, like to see a doctor, if you need to see a doctor for something specific, it could take you a couple weeks, right? Like, and that's hard. It's hard to schedule. It's hard to, if you're going to see a doctor, you're going to see a doctor for a reason that's urgent. Like, I don't think anyone's like, I should casually see a doctor about this. And so you have to sit and wait on it is hard.
Yeah.
Part of the reason we have that in Canada is like the nature of our country, which is like very large, and we have like a decent sized population for the world. Mm-hmm. And so our services are spread out, and in the places that we don't have the most doctors per capita that places do. Like people often talk about how in the Netherlands they don't quite have a single payer system. They have a pretty generous cost share with the government system, but they have way lower wait times than us. But the Netherlands is a nation of 14 million people, and Canada's 250 times larger than the Netherlands. Right. Also, people in the Netherlands pay a lot more than we do. Again, I said you and I pay about $200 a year in the Netherlands, and the person who pays the most for their health insurance, their public health insurance in Canada pays $900. In Ontario, pays $900 a year. In the Netherlands, they'd pay more like $1,000 to $1,500 a year for their insurance. And
Right.
if you
but
and I
it's,
were,
but it's shared with the government.
it is, they pay it to the government. Right. But then there's a lot more facilities. They have 24-hour clinics everywhere.
Right. It covers hash brownies and prostitutes.
That's right.
Stuff.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Tulips.
They do.
Just fistfuls. They just rub tulips on absolutely everything.
Orange clothes.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Orange. Yeah.
Yeah, all
that's
that
right.
stuff.
They fly you to a sporting event like across the world.
That's right. Yeah. Okay, and on wait times and stuff.
So that's a problem that Republicans have with it.
Yeah.
I mean, they also have a problem with the philosophical ideas of A, regulating an industry like that, right, so closely,
right,
and B, giving people tax incentives, which they consider to be like entitlements, right? It's like you're getting something for free because you're poor, and they don't want people to get entitlements when they're poor. They want people to not want to be poor, because then if people are getting stuff they want and still being poor, then they have no reason to work and stay poor, because being poor is a choice people make and not a result of tons of systemic factors outside of their control.
Well, and I'm stating the obvious for our conservative viewers, but poor people are less and never should have existed in the first place.
That's right. If they hadn't all smoked weed and turned gay, they wouldn't be in the situation that they're in.
That's right. I like to think of them as God's mistake. Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Jeff Sessions? It is you.
Zip.
It's Attorney General Jeff Sessions, everyone. That's who Jamie's been all along.
Yeah. As we both know, poor people cancer comes from Muslims. Yeah, so there you go.
Oh, thanks, Jeff.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah. Oh, there he goes. He's walking. Oh no, Jamie's back.
Yeah.
I guess he was just.
Hey, was that Jeff Sessions?
Yeah, I guess he was just doing a deep cover Russian psyop.
Oh man. Okay. Well, I can't wait to start this podcast, Richard.
Ooh.
Just kidding. It was me.
Yeah. So those are the things that they have a problem with. And actually, there was a leaked version of their replacement for Obamacare that came out, like their draft of what they're going to replace it with, that also included just giving people a little extra money to get insurance if they were below a certain line. And then a lot of Republicans rebelled against it, and they've torched that document now. It's been a hugely contentious thing, partly because Obamacare itself was originally the Republican alternative to single payer. Right, like the system we have, which was what Obama originally was kind of like thinking about. Right. But then regulating the insurance they did have is like the softer, more Republican model. That's part of why they're struggling so hard to create
a new one.
An alternative that doesn't include the stuff that Obamacare had, is because Obamacare was already a compromise measure. Right.
Is there any part of it that is like, is there any part of a Republican brain that's like, the Affordable Care Act is a good idea, but we can't let it be the Democrats' idea?
Yes, 100%. And in fact, some Republicans have started to realize that.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like some Republicans who I think were either willfully or just trying not to look directly at the thing are starting to realize that they don't have a better idea, and that they were just opposed to it all these years. Like essentially what the Republicans are trying to do is repackage the same things Obamacare did as their own idea.
Right.
And they're going to repeal it. Like what they're trying to do is create a thing where they get to say they won a victory without the Democrats able to be like, how you lost healthcare? It's because the Republicans did that.
Right.
That is such an easy and devastating political point to score against the Republicans. They're going to maneuver as hard as they can to try to not be able to be painted with that brush. Mm-hmm. The truth of the matter is, if they don't have a replacement when they repeal this bill, which they said they were going to do day one in office, and they've been dawdling around on because they know it's political suicide to do it without a replacement. But if they do that, all these people are going to go into not having insurance again. Right.
20 million people.
As many as 20. Certainly, the lowest number I heard is 10.
Right.
And it's easily larger than that, right? Like 10 million
all
people.
The numbers I've heard have been 20 and 25.
Hung out to dry, right?
Yeah.
Like people, largely people with mental health diagnoses, right? Like people with pre-existing conditions, people who are sick already.
Yeah, are
thrown out into the cold
to machines keeping them alive.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Oh man.
There's all kinds of interesting, like Australia has an interesting system too. They have, like most countries have some kind of universal healthcare, but it's mostly a cost share, right? So the government will pay 70% and you pay 30, and then people get like also a bit of private insurance to help cover the bit that they have to pay, right? So you pay for extra insurance to cover your 30% that's on you that the government doesn't pay for. So in Australia, they have a system like that where the government will give you a 70-30 deal, but then they have private insurance, but the government itself runs an insurance company that artificially keeps insurance low, right? So that insurance prices don't go crazy because people can just capitalistically increase them and shop around for services. The government has one insurance company that it owns, that it regulates how high the premiums can be and how many things it can offer. So it creates this artificially really competitive insurance company that everyone else has to match or kind of like deal with.
Right.
That's one way they like regulated the market.
So they're the baseline.
Exactly.
It's and like at the worst case scenario, you go to the government.
Yeah, they're the biggest, and that government insurance company, which is called Medibank, is the biggest private insurer in Australia also. That's a kind of an interesting other way to intervene in the market that I'm sure somebody suggested.
So they have private as well as public, and the private is being made to compete with the public, which is subsidized with taxpayer money.
You're close. It's so what it is Australia has public health insurance like we do, but we have single payer where the government pays for 100% of the service. In Australia, you get a cost share, so the government pays 70%, you pay 30%, right? So then people get private insurance in addition to their government insurance to help them with the 30% that they have to pay, right? So then separately from the public insurance, the government owns a private insurance company. And the government sets regulations for what that private insurance company can offer people. So it says like the prices can't get higher than this. These services have to be offered. These are the kinds of people you have to accept, right? And so then it is a private company, but the government owns it,
right?
And then the other private companies have to compete with this company being run by the government in order to exist, right?
Okay, cool.
That's how they do it.
It's kind of an oxymoron, though, isn't it? Private company that the government owns.
Yeah, totally.
A little bit.
I mean, but like, there's all kinds of companies sort of like that, like like transit companies and stuff are private companies that are like the government, that are like essentially branches of the government. It's just kind of
right. Okay, moving maybe forward. So healthcare in Canada it's pretty great. It's pretty great.
I mean,
what don't we offer in Canada that's like France does this or Italy does this.
Well, I mean, like the Netherlands is often one that's pointed to, like I said, as being good. And they have stuff like you can go to a clinic 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, including holidays. Right? That's a big deal. They have better infrastructure and access. Again, they're dealing with super different challenges than we are. Like in urban centers in Canada, there's decent medical coverage. Out in the territories and in rural areas and stuff, there just isn't. Canada's a geographically massive country, so we deal with that. We deal with how many doctors we have, and we deal with losing doctors to places where they can make more money. Right?
Oh yeah.
That's tapered off a little bit. That there was a lot more concern about that before, but the government negotiates with doctors to set a fair price for what they do, and so they we're losing fewer doctors than we were 15 years ago, I think.
Yeah, my cousin is he's a physicist and he's teaching out at Harvard, and his wife is a medical doctor who refused to move to the States because she didn't agree with the system that they have down there, and she thought that it is amoral and against the reason I became a doctor to go do that. So she stayed. Like I think now he's moving back to Canada, but she's stayed in Canada the whole time.
There's a moral element. My father's a doctor, as you know, but our listeners don't. I've never mentioned it on the show so far. So my father's a doctor, and there's I think a moral obligation too if you're trained in Canada to stay in Canada because their educations are heavily subsidized. Right, if you are a Canadian doing physician training in Canada, you are not bearing the full cost of what that physician training is going to cost because they expect you to stay and work in the public system, knowing you're going to take a pay cut. Right. my dad, I'm not super educated about this, but I will say it. My dad has always sort of wanted a 2-tier system, which is where there's private healthcare working alongside the public system. He always thought that could be, I mean, I don't know if he still thinks this. So, I'm sorry. I know you listen to the show, Dad. So, tell me if I got this wrong and I'll put it on a future episode.
Hey, Richard's dad. Haven't seen you in a bit. I hope you're well.
Yeah. Because what that would do is allow doctors to set up private practices where they, can charge their own fees to people who want to pay for it. But then his solution was, if you say you have to work this many hours in the public system at the public price before you can start seeing patients privately, right? Like per week, per month, or whatever, then that can attract more doctors because they can make more money in Canada, right, and kind of like improve our infrastructure.
So it's like if you've been a doctor for 20 years, or like if you've been a doctor for 10 years, all of a sudden you're allotted 50 billable hours a month that you can charge whatever you want.
Yeah, that's right. And then rich people can access healthcare ahead of other people. Like so
that's cool. Like, I don't know that I dislike that idea.
I know what you mean. Like if my dad did the job he does in America, he'd make a lot more money than he does in Canada.
Right.
Where he still does just fine, let's be clear. Mm-hmm. But like I get why it's an attractive idea. I think that I don't know that it's a bad idea, and I'd have to learn more about it, but I think that there's something inherently dangerous about creating tiered access to healthcare. About philosophically in Canada right now, everyone is equal. Mm-hmm. And there's a homeless person who walks into the ER has the same right to access that medical treatment as the president of TD Bank. And certainly the president of TD Bank can fly to Switzerland and get fancy healthcare somewhere else. But in Canada, that's how it is.
Yeah, and I guess yes. Yeah.
And it's dangerous to open the door.
That's what I was going to say.
It's dangerous to philosophically open the door.
Well, especially since capitalism is law of the jungle. It's the strong survive and the poor don't. And at what point does it consume the whole thing? If you let it in a little bit, can it start living in your house?
Tommy Douglas, the father of the Canadian universal healthcare system, always warned against any move away from the universal aspect of the system. He warned against strangling the universal access to healthcare that every Canadian or person anyone who has the right to be in Canada for like longer than 3 months, if you have a temporary work permit, those people all get to access the system also.
Right.
It's a generous system, and it's like a foundational pillar of our national identity that we have this system. It's like we're one of the only countries in the world that has it, one of two.
Yeah. I'm going to show my my sort of liberalism for a second here. I'm always like, and I know I'm a young socialist, idealistic man, but I always feel like everything that is required to live should be public.
Absolutely.
So like, everyone gets a basic rent. Everyone gets a basic food allowance.
Yeah,
that can only be like a special credit card that can only be spent at grocery stores.
I think that too,
or something like that. And I don't, I'm sure there's lots of issues, and I'm sure like if I was made prime minister and I said let's do that, I'd be going on the news the next day saying, "Who knew,
folks? Who knew that it was so complicated to create fully automated luxury gay space communism here in Canada?"
Luxury gay space communism.
Indeed.
Yeah. Take that as quote of the podcast.
That's a meme.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
International, or what is it? Gay
fully automated luxury gay space communism.
But yeah. So mind you, I think that's sort of what we would be getting into if we talked about
the universal basic income, which is definitely,
and that's on our list of things to cover.
It's on our list.
Stay tuned.
Honestly, I feel like, and this is again, every time I was researching these healthcare things, I was like lost in all these insurance tables, and I'd zoom out and be like, oh my, like I just see the humanity of it.
Yeah.
Like, it's interesting because almost every government on the world feels a responsibility to provide and intervene in healthcare for its people. I don't think there's anywhere that has like an unregulated healthcare market.
Right.
And that's because
not even North Korea.
No, I think
definitely.
Yeah, that's right. North Korea has totally free market healthcare. It's like everything else is super regulated, but then it's like you turn like onto you turn onto Supreme Glorious Leader Hospital Way, and it's like Surgery Orama, and there's like neons. It's like fucking it's like Biffville or whatever from Back to the Future 2. It's like a casino fucking hospital. Like girls, neon signs. Oh fuck.
Yeah. Okay, so nowhere is completely unregulated.
No, because governments feel the need to provide people with that, because it's like a place where their citizens are going to be vulnerable and wanting access and wanting compassion, and I think governments everywhere understand that people need a certain amount of protection from capitalism when they're vulnerable like that. But then there's this like huge philosophical question about like, what is healthcare?
Right.
What is a healthy person? Isn't it true that putting a roof over someone's head and putting food in their belly is like better health? Like that'll keep them out of the hospital and keep healthcare costs down maybe over time. You know, like this is like a huge philosophical question that our societies are facing right now.
Well, and also make them more productive. I think I think of my poorest moments, and I'm a theater actor by trade. I find poor moments regularly, multiple times a year. And by poor moments, I don't mean like, oh, I can't buy this coffee. I mean like, oh, I have to buy less food this week because I need to make it to rent on next weekend.
Oh, I was living the Chinese bakery, kept calories in my body during the month of January.
And like, you know, I think of those times in my life in which I've been like that, and again, they happen regularly. And I you know, and this is not documented by science or experiments, but I certainly feel lazier. I feel like more lethargic. I don't get as much work done. I get depressed. I get like, you know, I don't want to go to a social event and make eye contact with someone in case they can like see my poverty, you know. And I you know, and every time I come into money, I get a contract or whatever, I get lucky with a commercial or something like that. I feel the joy pour back into my body. Not just the joy, but like the relaxation, I guess.
Yeah.
The state of evenness. And I thought, what if I never had that sort of poverty-induced depression? Mind you, we're getting into a topic.
This is the UBI. We're getting into the UBI right now.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about that.
But like to zoom it out again too, like I can never stress enough like the fact that all these uninsured people in the United States, many of whom like needed access to mental health treatment and who had mental health diagnoses and things like that. Like Jamie and I have lost friends to suicide and mental illness, and we have many friends and know many people and who are being treated, counseled, you know, in therapy, on medication, who are like just trying to live their lives and who do not make enormous amounts of money, but in Canada they have access to those resources.
Yeah, and even still it's hard.
And still it's hard. It doesn't make it easy.
It's difficult.
But like, can you imagine if you were in the States and you couldn't get this insurance? Like,
they sort it out.
The honest truth too is that, you know, we chose to be actors, and actors have lived the way that we live for a long time through generations, right?
Yeah, it's kind of part of the
romance. But with automation and with the changes in our economy and the gig economy springing up, the gig economy is like the buzzword for everyone is an actor now. Yeah. Everyone is hustling between moments of surplus and moments of like, you know, deficit. Everyone gets booms and busts now. Yeah. Everyone has to make ends meet. Like it's becoming much more the rule rather than the exception that people live like actors do. I think it's an interesting thing to see all these people being like, oh my God, I have to, you know, do 5 side projects in order to stay alive. And it's like, hi, yes. Yeah, we have a chair waiting for you here at this shitty party.
Please join us. Yeah. What else, man? What else do we want to say? I think, okay. So for now, we every episode in which we handle like a social issue like this, we sort of do a bit of a call to action. What for our American friends? What would you suggest be the course of action they take, if any, to fight for your right for Obamacare and a better healthcare system?
Well, I mean, frankly, I've been blown away by the viciousness with which the people in the Republican districts have been attacking their Republican Congress people and senators for taking the Affordable Care Act away. A lot of Republicans are being totally scared out of their own constituencies. They're not holding meetings anymore because whenever they've been holding meetings, all these people have been showing up and
yelling,
screaming at them.
Yeah.
And they're scared. So I think that press it, press the attack, find the organizations in your communities that are advocating for at least keeping the Affordable Care Act. But I mean, the Affordable Care Act is an improvement to a deeply inhumane and flawed system that is not seen anywhere else really in the Western world, right? Like you should fight for a single payer healthcare system. You should be fighting for that.
Yeah.
You should have it. There's no reason to not have it in a country as wealthy as America. You should have a single payer healthcare system. You can afford to take, a little money out of the defense spending and put it into hospitals and stuff like that.
Right.
Like it's just a philosophical thing.
Right, but what if the U.S. didn't have enough nukes to blow up the world 300 times over?
Yeah, and I guess another way they could do one of those like Skynet things where it's like the way we can have healthcare is if everyone's been nuked, then no one will need a hospital. Maybe that's another option that hey, Oprah 2020, nuke everyone for healthcare.
Great.
Yeah. Okay, do you want to do a wrap-up? Do you want to summarize? What have we learned today, Jamie?
Okay, well, Canada has a single-payer healthcare system,
Correct.
Most similar to Taiwan, in which every person pays $200 to up to $900.
That's in Ontario. Every province is different.
Yeah, you got variation within. American healthcare system is all private. Obamacare itself, which is our topic today, helps. It creates an open enlisting period. Did you say?
Yeah. Enrollment.
So an open enrollment period, which is a month long, in which you can go and sign up for health insurance, and they can't discriminate against you for past illnesses or current illnesses that you have. It also creates a tax incentive for you to help pay for your processes. And there's a third point about
Medicaid.
And Medicaid, which is for elderly pregnant children.
That's right. Like Benjamin Button. It's only for Benjamin Button.
Yeah. If Benjamin Button and Arnold Schwarzenegger from Twins.
Yeah.
Or no.
It's like Brad Pitt got himself legally declared Benjamin Button, so he's the only person who gets Medicaid. It's just for Brad Pitt.
Yeah. But he makes too much money.
Yeah. So he doesn't even qualify.
So he's not even eligible.
Fuck me.
It also makes Medicaid more easier to get.
That's any adult who's poor, who's at the correct poverty line can get it.
That's right. And the big hubbub that's being built now is that the Republicans are going to repeal it before they have a replacement for it, which they probably won't do because that's political suicide. But it's being thrown around, and it's still scary that the guy who's in charge of setting it up
he fucking eats his steak well done with ketchup. That guy's in charge of your healthcare.
Yeah, that man. There's better systems in the world. There's all kinds of examples as to why, moralistically, the U.S. system is dangerous, especially for its size and wealth and advancement. Am I missing anything?
That's pretty much it.
Yeah. If you're on the poor side of Obamacare, you're still paying $5,000 a year for your health care.
Yeah.
Which is
just for your insurance.
Yeah.
Before you even have to do anything.
Yeah. Before if you get a $100,000 surgery and you have to pay $40,000.
And I haven't even said this, but also with the insurance plans, only some hospitals and clinics are in your network, and if you go to an out of network one, then you pay full price.
Right.
Capitalism, baby.
Yeah. Oh, is that like a GMO? Is that
an HMO?
HMO.
Yeah. A GMO is a genetically modified organism, which we could also do an episode on.
Hey,
that could be interesting. That's food engineering and stuff. Yeah, but an HMO is like a network of healthcare providers in the States.
Okay. Yeah. Effectively, everyone should probably have universal health care.
It comes down to, like I said, philosophical viewpoint about what your attitude towards your fellow humans is. You know, like,
wouldn't it be great if everyone you ever knew and ever will know wouldn't have to worry about the financial repercussions of getting sick?
Yeah. And I mean, we're not in that world either in Canada, but the stress, I don't live with the knowledge that I might have to look at my bank account before I call an ambulance.
Yeah.
You know, there was one point I wanted to make, and maybe this is a good wrap up point, is that when I think of the morality of healthcare, I think of this political thinker whose name was John Rawls, who had this thought experiment called that he referred to as the original position. And I'll do my shitty podcast summary of it. Basically, it's like you're a soul. You're about to be born into the world, right? So you're going to be born into you have a choice of which country you're going to be born into, but you don't know who you're going to be, basically.
Right.
And knowing that you could be born, if you're born in Canada, you could be born as the son of the president of TD Bank, or you could be born as a disabled Indigenous person, or a homeless person, or born to a homeless mother, or something like that. Like, which country would you choose to be born into? America or Canada?
Right.
Like if you had no knowledge of who you're going to be in a society, what seems just to you? Right? It's
that's a beautiful point.
And it's think about it that way. Evaluate the systems that way.
Right.
And then you'll see where the justice is.
If I didn't have everything I had,
if there's a chance you could be someone vastly different than yourself.
Right. In the worst case scenario.
If that was a possibility for you, what system is more fair? What system is more real?
Wow.
Anyway, I always thought with healthcare that's a really good tack to take on it.
Right.
Yeah.
I'd want to be born on the sun.
I want to be Brad Pitt and Benjamin Button. That's who I choose to be born as. That's how the game works, right? I get to pick which celebrity I get to be.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Well, I learned a lot.
Cool, man.
I learned a lot. A lot of stuff was affirmed for me.
Yeah.
That's really horrible. I mean, yeah, it's really horrible.
Hey, world, I'm sure that I got some of these details fuzzy, and I'm sure there's a lot more nuance in a lot of these ideas. So if I mess some stuff up, hit us up. Please get in touch.
Respond.
We will do follow-ups with things like this because, part of the name of the game is we have fun, and we like to summarize things in a way that is understandable. And in summarizing things, sometimes you blur some of the details together to make a clear, digestible picture. But we feel a sense of responsibility, too, to follow up on things we got wrong or shade in things that could be clearer.
That's right.
So hit us up, let us know. We'll cover it in a clarification episode.
That's right. The wise man understands that he knows nothing, or a wise woman understands that
you fucked this up. Shit.
Knows.
Keep digging this hole.
Nothing.
Wait, he's melting. He's melting into a puddle.
Oh, Jeff Sessions, what are you doing back here?
I just came here because I heard there was a colored person.
Oh no,
Jeff! Jeff!
Oh, wait outside. Okay, yeah. If you have anything to add, please hit us up on the comments. Please subscribe, share our stuff. If you have a second, we would do it's a big solid. If you log onto your iTunes, give us a rating and a review.
Just mash that 5-star review, guys.
5 stars, please.
And thank you.
Yeah, and thank you.
We are Canadian.
That'd be great. This has been Obamacare. We hope you learned a lot. I know I did. We also had some good laughs. I'm Jamie.
I'm Richard.
This is Explain It to Jamie.